And thank you guys so much for being here. I will keep moderating the waiting room and just make sure that everybody gets in. But I am Rebecca Razor. I'm here from Advanced Communities to talk about our housing app. I'm joined and really hosted by Jude Comer, who is with Salesforce. And she's going to be showing off kind of the app functionality and how Salesforce is using it today, and maybe how we want to start looking at using it in the future. So I will take a very short period of time here. I want to give Jude as much time as possible. But just a very quick intro to AC. We have really started looking at this housing app because, you know, Salesforce is such a big name in the technology sector, and we all know it can do a lot as a CRM. But AC Housing was really created to sit on top of the Salesforce platform to sort of maximize its usability. And we created it sort of out of a market need, really, for housing associations and for social housing management. AC Housing is a housing management software. And so what it does is it provides the foundation for all business critical processes and regulatory requirements. The platform is really rich in features. It sort of gives you everything you need in one location right on the Salesforce platform. And it helps you to really drive effective social housing management. And because AC is Salesforce native, AC Housing really provides property owners and administration a 360-degree view of properties, of tenants, rent accounting, arrears management, void management, and a whole lot more, really, which gives them comprehensive data for advanced analytics. AC is an implementation partner as well as an ISV partner, and we have products on the Salesforce App Exchange. And of course, we're going to be seeing housing today, but we have several others if you're interested in checking that out on the App Exchange. And the one really the only other remark I want to make before we get started here is that AC Housing is a brand new app. We are right at the beginning of this. And because we created this app as, you know, out of a market need, we're really interested in feedback around the app and sort of what kind of features we could add to make this even more effective for social housing and housing associations. So please send on your feedback, please ask questions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jude.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, so yeah, as Rebecca said, what we're going to have a look at today is the housing side of Salesforce. I'm going to run through, you know, people and properties, a bit of tenancies, some arrears management and voids management. So I'll try and keep to sort of about 20 minutes and then leave some questions at the end. Whether people want to pop the questions into the chat or we'll wait to the end, but if you want to pop them into the chat, then we can gather those. And as Rebecca said, you know, we're looking for feedback as well in terms of what we've produced so far. So let me just share my screen.
Yes, and while you're getting that up, Jude, I'll go ahead and say we are joined by several members of the AC team, including our product management team for the housing app. So if you have questions as Jude is chatting, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll get those answered for you.
Okay, great. So signed into Salesforce as an AC Housing user. Those of you familiar with Salesforce, so I've signed in just to dashboard at the beginning. And again, I've got a voids management dashboard here. And then under my dashboards, I could have arrears management. So I've got an arrears dashboard that I've created. All of these you can edit. So if you want to edit them, you know, you can add your components in, you can bring in different reports, you can drag and drop them around. So all of those things sit within the user's home screen when you first sort of log in. As you would expect from anything to do with housing, we've got a number of contacts. So we can go in and have a look at contact records. So we have people, we have properties, and then obviously linked together into tenancies, and then moving through into accounts, arrears, and then the void management side of things. So if we look at a contact record, we can hold all of this information about our contact. So we can see who he is and where he lives. We can hold lots of different contact information. Down here, what we've written is a income and expenditure form. So this can drive things around if you wanted to charge rent, depending on income, that type of thing. I've spoken to some housing associations recently that are looking to maybe drive rent by the energy efficiency of the property. So when you're thinking about things in terms of, you know, the household bills going up, what's going on, you know, just generally with the cost of living, older properties are harder to heat, so they're looking at driving that. So this sort of income calculation can drive what rent is then charged. Could also be driven by things like energy efficiency. We can hold things like photographs, so we can hold files against the contact record. We might want to hold a tenancy agreement against the contact record, so any of those things you can hold as a file within there. So we've got the people, we can see if they're receiving any benefits, and again, how much benefit that is, when it starts and when it ends. So all of that sort of information. So we've got all of our contact information here. Again, I can have these in a list view. I could have them in a Kanban or a split view as well. So from a user's perspective, I can decide how I want to see that information. Same with the properties. So I can go into a property, might be linked to a block, and then obviously we can hold all of the information. We can see voids, start and end dates, who the current tenant is, and I could view all and look at any previous tenants. So we've got our contact and property records, and then, like we say, between those we would have a tenancy. So if I go into a tenancy record, I've set mine up into a split view, so you can drill in now. So in terms of tenancies, I've set my screen up to be a split screen, so I can look at a view of tenancies on the left hand side. So if I was a housing officer, I'd have like a patch of tenancies that I looked at. So I've got those down the left hand side, and then on the right hand side I've got the information about that particular tenancy. I can put it into a full screen. So what we've done here is we've got all of the charges that are going out, and then we are marking them off. So there's a health indicator that shows when the payment has been made, and then we've got a visual representation here to flag up when they haven't. And when we look at the arrears, you'll be able to see that in a bit more detail. So we've got the tenancy information on the left hand side. We can see that they're £400 in arrears. We can see what the rent amount is. We can see that it's a weekly tenancy, so it's a weekly rent account, and we can see things like starts and ends dates. Again, you can upload files, you can see when the property was void here, and you can see any arrears cases that might either be ongoing or that may have closed. So you can always see when they have been in arrears. You can go into the case and see what happened, look at all the notes, so you can drill in all of that information from the tenancy itself, rather than going into the arrears, going into the void management section. So depending on what kind of job role you have, and what permissions and security that you have within Salesforce, will depend on what you can see and what you can access. But from a pure housing perspective, and if I was a housing manager, then I can see all of the information I need to see from one single screen within Salesforce itself. So in terms of voids and arrears management, so for those of you familiar with Salesforce, you will know that we have a lot of different flows within Salesforce. So the void workflows can be set up depending on what your void process is. So we've got standard voids here with a number of tasks. So if I look at all the tasks, and what we've done is we've put them into different milestones. Many organizations now are looking to start the void process as soon as possible. So as soon as that notice is received, being able to turn that void around as quickly as possible and limit the amount of void loss that you have within that property. So being able to access it straight away, start doing those tasks that need to be done. So we've grouped those sorts of tasks into pre-void milestones. Then we go in through the void actions, including things like key management. You know, have the keys been returned from the tenant? Who's got the keys now? The housing manager? Have they gone to the void team for repairs to be completed? Is the property ready to be advertised again to be relet? So we've grouped a number of actions into the void action plan. The void then becomes completed, and then we've got lettings actions as well. So you can have repeated actions within each of those milestones. So again, if you want that keys, so you're handing those keys off to the new incoming tenant. So you can have all those different tasks configured within the workflow. So if we have a look at a void in particular, so these are all the voids that I've got at the moment. So again, I've set mine into a Kanban view, so I can see how many I've got pre-void, ones that are in the action stage, ones that are completed, some that are in a letting stage. Again, if you didn't want it like that, you could have a table view, so you can just have a list view here, or you can go through and have a split view so that you drill into each of the voids, and then you can see what the void, who it's for, so what property it's for, whereabouts it is within the milestones. So we can see this is in the void actions milestone within the flow itself. And then we've also put some nice indicators here so we can see how far through. So it's really, really good for a one screen at a glance. I can see exactly where I am in this void process. I can see what's happened and I can see what needs to happen. Scroll down just a little bit, and again we've got the health sort of indicators here to say what things have been completed and what haven't. And again, I can drill into each of the tasks if I need to underneath. Again, the ability to upload files. So if you want some photos, you might want to put your meter readings in, you might have those in a file. All of that information can be uploaded against that particular void flow that's held against the property. The rental loss is being clocked up here, so that's coming up on a daily basis, so it's telling us how much rent we've lost. We can also add loss amounts to things like tasks. So if there was repairs tasks that needed completing, or you might have cleaning, key changing, lock changes with new keys and things like that. So you can split it between what's a rental loss and what's allocated to those tasks within the void, and split those out for reporting purposes. So what's pure rent, what were the costs against that particular void, and then your overall void cost for that particular property within that period of time. So you can hold all of that information there. And these would obviously the different actions go to the different teams, and they pick those up within their particular tasks and their workflow to be completed. So we can move these forward. So once these are complete, you can mark them as the current stage, and it will start to move it through as each of the tasks are completed. We've done a similar thing in terms of the arrears flow. So over here. So in the arrears workflow, again, there would be a number of tasks, and they can be driven by things like time. They can be driven by a monetary value. So you might have things like week 1. We've got 7 days for that milestone, and we send out an automated communication. Week 2 goes by, again, could be a length of time, and we send another automated communication, but we also ring the tenant as well. So again, the rents and voids flows that are within Salesforce are things that I've spent 20 years in the social housing sector, and they're things that I know are commonly done. So we've kind of looked at all of that information, and then sort of put what we think is best practice in terms of arrears and void flow. So you would move through the void process, the arrears process, all the way down, and then start sending things like notices, visiting tenants. And then you would get to the milestones again on pre-court. When you go to court, if you've got a suspended in possession order, you can have flows for things like agreements and arrangements as well, all the way through to whether somebody gets evicted or not. So again, that arrears flow is configurable, and it can obviously link in with all the communications that we can send, so that omni-channel communication that comes so well from Salesforce. So if we go in and have a look at some arrears accounts. So again, I've set mine up in this view because then it groups everything together, which I quite like. So I can go through and have a look at who's pre-court. So again, it tells me where I am within this particular flow, tells me how much they owe at the moment, that we're at the current milestone of pre-court. I can see that these tasks have already been completed. And then I can go through and send out, I could add some new tasks into here. So if I wanted to go and send out a new pre-court letter, we can say who we're going to send it to. Her name is Katia. And then we'll say that it's in the pre-court milestone and we're going to prepare to court. So we can put some notes. Again, you can put sort of really long notes in there. So President, the court date. So we can add all of these things in. And like I say, you can do omni-channel communication. So some of these automated first ones might be a text message because they're like low-level arrears and they just need to be sent out like that. Like I said, we've got our dashboards. So we've got things around rents and arrears management. So we can group the arrears by milestones. I can drill into any of these reports. So we've got 2 cases. We can put in any new cases that have come in, any ones that have been paid. So again, we can report on those of, how many new arrears cases are coming along, how many have now been closed because we've completed those, the balances have gone back to 0. And again, you can drill into all of these reports and then go through and have a look at the actual case itself, so we can go into those. So again, the reports from the dashboards completely take you all the way through, depending on what your job role is as well. Okay. So in terms of sort of Salesforce functionality, we've got all of the accounts, and like I say, you can go in and you can build up households. You can have multiple people living in the household. You can put things like their assessable income, and you can drill into their tenancies from here as well. So we can hold all of that housing data that you would expect, but also run that sort of debit cycle of how often the account needs to be charged, whether that's weekly, whether that's monthly, whether it's a fixed term, or whether it's just a rolling, it could be just an assured tenancy that rolls on and on and on until, something happens. So we can hold all of that information there, and then we can bring the payments in, and we would hold your payments underneath here. And again, you can drill into the payment itself, see where it came from, whether it came from housing benefit, what periods it covered, and then you can further drill into each of the payment allocations within here, again, uploading your files and that type of information within there. So it's core Salesforce, but it's built and it's kind of managed there, much quicker to implement, and something that we felt needed to be done in the housing market in terms of Salesforce, a real focus on the social housing sector and how things run within it, because obviously voids, rent accounting and arrears, very, very sort of specific to housing itself. So that's the sort of overview of both modules, and it all comes together, like we say, in the AC housing package on Salesforce. I can see there's quite a lot of questions in the chat. So do you want me to answer those now? Anyone want to ask any, or?
Are there any of those that you feel comfortable addressing, Jude? If not, then we can talk to product.
I'm just finding the questions rather than the. Do we have integration into field services and finance systems and MS Dynamics is the first question. So did we answer that one?
Yes, Katja answered that one, in that it's product MVP. So we haven't implemented those integrations yet. But if there is a specific product integration that you're looking for, if you reach out to us, we can talk to you about it for sure.
Okay. Case management, ASB complaints and money advice. We haven't built those as apps, but they can be built as flows within Salesforce. So Salesforce can manage, all of the housing aspects that I've ever seen within social housing. So we haven't built any of those yet, but if somebody wanted them built like this is built, then, you know, yes, we can do that. And we've got some customers that are trialing things like ASB and money advice at the moment. Property inspections and property document. That's very so in terms of the property development, I'm going to a meeting next month. So yes, we are. Yes, we know about asset management and things like compliance. Yeah, so we are looking at all of those things. So I think from a housing perspective, I think what I would say is I've been at Salesforce now for 6 months. My colleague Tom Lancefield's been here a little bit longer, and we're having a real drive internally. Social housing is at the forefront of what we're looking at the moment. Like I say, I spent 20 years in a social housing setting. I worked for a housing association for 12 years, and I worked for another software supplier for 8 years. So we are moving into the housing space in a big way. So things like property, asset management, compliance, you know, risk assessments, all of those things are in our plans. So kind of watch this space, really. We'll be doing more webinars and, you know, releasing more information for sure as we go along. And yes, subject access requests is a report. And I've seen one of those recently for a customer that's looking to do exactly that. So it is a report that pulls all of that data together from Salesforce itself, and then we can send out a report for a subject access request. So yeah, we can do all of that in terms of, and it's GDPR compliant. Also the right to be forgotten and sort of anonymizing data and all of that sort of thing can all be done too. Is there anything else that anybody else wants to ask or?
Jude, hi, it's Christian from Hyde. I have a question about things like how do you pick up behaviours that are out of the ordinary? So if someone has you know, they typically pay, I don't know, a week after their bill. How can you use things like triggers to identify, well, actually they've gone a month or beyond, or their amount where they would normally keep within £100 has gone up to £200, £300?
Yeah, so there's
things like that.
Yeah, there's different. So what we're looking at is more sort of statistical analysis. So you're thinking something like RentSense does, of profiling when people pay, how they pay, their propensity to become in arrears and that sort of thing. So the analytics would be something that we would be looking to extend. And I would also ask Advanced if they've got any ideas about that, but we can profile how people pay and then flag up within a particular time if they haven't paid. So what we've got set up at the moment is quite, you know, you don't pay, you're a week in arrears and we send you a message, that type of thing. But that analysis of arrears, some people do pay, you know, they go into arrears until they get a court letter and then they pay it all off. And then, you know, it's that type of analysis that we would need to extend. But all the data is in there. It's how customers would want it presented as well. Would you just want a report that says, you know, or do you want it in a different kind of way? So that's something that we would definitely look at.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Well, guys, I tell you what, I'm so sorry for the technology issues, live technology, right? I will send out this recording to everyone. And before I send it out, I will chop it down a bit. So we cut down all the little extra bits and you'll just see the demo. So if you couldn't see your screen or something, we'll be sure to send that out to you. And
we've got one last question as well about.
Excellent.
From Tom G. Is there a performance ceiling on the size of the housing app? That's far too technical for the likes of me.
anyone from product have this quick answer? If not, I have copied down all of the questions from our chat today, and I will put those in the follow-up as well. And that way you can have the recording and answers to all of the questions.
Is that okay, Tom? Okay.
Okay.
Fab.
Oh, cool. It just keeps going. I love it. Let me make sure that I have that down, Tom, and we will get back to you.
Okay. Yeah. We can definitely cope with all of that, I'm sure, because we've got customers already doing that are, you know, 35,000 properties.
Perfect.
Yeah, but we can get you some numbers on the metrics and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Jude, thank you so much. I will get this out to everybody as soon as possible, and please do reach out if you have any questions.